All right. So, what's going on, everyone? I'm John, and I'm the host of the WaterSeed podcast. Now, today is going to be a magnificent day. The reason why I have a super special guest today who goes by the name of Jack. What's good, Jack? How are
My
you?
name. Hey, how you doing, John?
I'm
Thanks
doing
for
amazing.
the opportunity. You looking good over there. I like the shirt, like the tie. Keeping
Trying to
it
be like you.
professional. Hey, I'm keeping it simple, man.
Hey, everyone. Jack is super motivational, and I know you all will get a chance to hear how great of a person he is today. But everyone, before we
All
get
right, man.
started, we need to take care of business. I would like to tell you all the purpose of the Water Seed podcast. So, everyone, I am currently a fifth grade teacher in Washington, D.C. And a few months ago, we started the first week of school. And on that first week of school, we asked the students, what do you want to do when you get older? And what are some things that you would like to do now? And the students came up with some amazing responses, all right? So I wanted to reach out to my friends to find out what do they do. That way we can expose the kids to the different opportunities there are in the world. All right.
That's awesome.
Shout out to you, Jack, and everyone watching and listening. But before we get started with the questions, we need to take care of business. Everyone, please try to subscribe to my Instagram and YouTube account, which is entitled Water Seed Podcast. And if you would love to support the vision and the podcast, you can go to Cash App, $Water Seed Podcast. All right.
All right.
First
Oh
question,
man.
Jack. What
Yeah.
is one of your favorite memories from school?
All right. Good question. So one of my favorite memories from school is probably if I think back to elementary school, middle school times. One of the things that were big at the time was wrestling or professional wrestling. At the time, it was WWF or WWE as it's called now, but the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And most days after school, me and the boys would instead of taking the bus home, instead we decided we'd walk home and meet at a field back. I think it was a soccer field slash baseball field, and just in it we started wrestling. We had our cardboard cutout belts, and we, would just battle for those belts and see who take the win. Me and my crew, copied what was at the time called the Wolf Pack, and so that was a squad. But tons of fun. I mean, it was definitely a time where didn't have to worry about COVID and things like this. It was, just didn't have to worry about working and all the rest of that. Just could enjoy time with friends, and so definitely one of the memories I enjoyed the most.
Man, thank you for sharing, Jack. And shout out to the
Yeah.
Wolfpack and shout out to Jack's entire group of friends. Question two. What is your career and what do you do?
So those that's sort of two different questions, right? So my career, I am an IT professional or a professional in the software field, right? But my role is a program manager. So I currently work at Microsoft, representing here. So Microsoft is probably one of the oldest tech companies around. Although it's old, though, they've been able to keep up with the times. You might be familiar with Microsoft from Windows, the operating system, from Office if you use Word or PowerPoint or Excel in class, or if you use Minecraft. Microsoft also owns Minecraft. And another exciting thing, if you play Xbox, well, Microsoft owns Xbox. Unfortunately, I don't work with any of those fun products that you might know of, like Xbox and Minecraft, but I work with on another product called Intune. And Intune or Microsoft Endpoint Manager is specifically around managing your phones and computers and tablets inside of the workplace. Okay. And so what I do specifically, I am a program manager, and traditionally a program manager will identify new features that should be added to the software that the developers or engineers, software engineers, work on. My role is a little different, right? Because my role is one that is customer facing. So all of the users, all the end users who use the product themselves, I work directly with them to understand how they're using the product, some of the gaps that we have in the product, so that we could take those features and implement those back into the product to make it better.
Ooh.
And so collecting that feedback, collecting that insight, those deep insights to go back into the product and make it better.
I love it. It sounds as if you're very hands-on in the entire process.
Awesome. Yeah, I try to be. I try to be. But there's a lot of moving hands, and when it comes to software development.
I love it. I love it. But Jack, that leads me to my next question. Question 3. Could you please describe your journey into this field?
Sure. So, what many of you will learn along the path is that, it's not straight and narrow for us all, right? You might see things clearly, but you might take a different path than what you expected. And you have to be open to that. For me, my path was definitely all over the place. As a child, I had no idea I wanted to have a career in IT or in the software industry at all. I could think back to when I was in elementary school, and I thought about being an astronaut. And as I got a little older, I loved to draw, and I would draw action figures, and then I began drawing houses. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I want to go into architecture. And I really enjoyed drawing houses for a time. I took classes in high school for architecture, and it was exciting. But what I didn't realize was that throughout all of that time, there was a common thread. So as a young boy, going back, if I have a little bit of time here, John, I found myself making music, right? I was into hip hop quite a bit, so I would write rhymes. I was also into making beats, right? And then I thought, like, hey, I need some equipment. And so, because I want to make my own beats, right? And so, well, I needed a computer. So I couldn't afford a computer. So I found parts and I pieced computer together, and I learned how to build a computer. And then my first real job, I had many jobs in my youth, but my first real job was at a library in a role called a web star, right? And in that role, I taught older people who may have not had great computer skills how to use different programs. I taught them how to create websites. In addition, created my own website and learned a bit more about the technology behind it. And so I was fascinated with that at all times, but I never saw this as a career opportunity. And it wasn't until I decided to go to college where in taking an information systems class, I had a lot of interest in it, and I would come to the professor after school and ask all these questions about what I was learning and what I was reading, because I was really excited. And the teacher told me, well, Jack, have you ever thought about, studying computer science or information technology and turning that into a career? And I hadn't at the time, and that's when it came to me that it was something that I truly loved, and that I should follow that passion, right? And so that's where I was able to focus, because traditionally I thought, hey, by that time I was like, hey, I'm going to school for business. That's what I want to do. But it was just, that's what I thought to do. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. And so it wasn't until I discovered this and the teacher helped point this out that, hey, you have a gift, you have interest, you should focus on your interests. And so I carried that forward, and now I'm here.
That's amazing. I love how you connected your interests and your passions together from your childhood even to adulthood. So shout out to you, Jack.
You have to, but many times, you know, many of us as kids and even adults, we forget, you know, what those are, or sometimes, you know, just think that, you know, work can't be what we enjoy. And so, you know, we have to remember that there's plenty of opportunities out there to turn that into what we truly love.
Yes, spot on. So for question 4, what education or training is required to do what you do?
So I'd like to take out the word required, because there's many ways to get to, I guess, to this point. I work with many people who have different backgrounds, some who have taken, you know, a path, a career path that they started in a different field and they figured out that they love technology and somehow made their way in, or they went to the military and got trained in this particular area in technology in the military, and then took those skills and transitioned after their military career. For me, it required for me to go to a traditional university, San Diego State University. Shout out to my Aztecs, and study information systems, right? So, like I said, you know, usually you might find folks in my field studying computer science, right, or information systems, or something similar in that area. And so I studied information systems, which gave me a foundation in computer programming and databases and the software development lifecycle and all these different technical spaces. But it also gave me a good balance around IT project management and also communications and some of the business skills that I needed, because I interact day in and day out with customers, right? I have to present to these customers. I have to work with them, right, really closely. So it's important to be able to have those skills as well. And so that's really, I guess, that sums it up.
Jack, I love how
But
everything is connecting.
but one more thing though, you know, after school, especially in the field of technology, you don't stop learning, right? You stop school, right? I'm no longer in a traditional school or university or whatnot, but I don't stop learning, right? This past weekend, I picked up a book to study Python, right? You know, and this is the book here, right? Because I'm continually to develop my skills so that I can be better for myself, right? And so, you know, for me, it means, you know, maybe I have to get a certification, right? Which is a certificate that indicates that I know how to do something, whether it's programming or some other skill. And so in the field of technology and many other fields, you can't stop learning. You have to keep building, keep educating yourself, because technology changes, right? And the world changes around us. So if we really, you know, want to succeed, we have to continue to learn.
And learning is fun, especially when you're focusing on your
Exactly.
passion and
Yes.
your interests.
Yes.
Learning is fun, and reading. So, Jack, for question 5,